Hi, this is Zach Anderson, and today I will be going over coding problem set 3, the Hangman word game. Within this coding set, there are going to be 4 different problems, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. I will be going over all of them in this video. I will make sure that it is blatant which problem we're going over at the time. So yeah, per usual, let's start by defining what we need to do, getting our background information, and let's get right into it. So a lot of text here, important to read. If you need to read, please pause the video and read it. But seeing as I did ahead of time, we can move on. So like the word says, we are making a Hangman word game, and we're going to be iterating this through 4 different problems. Here we have some requirements listed that will function for the game. So if we jump down to problem 1, this is going to be writing one of the 3 simple functions that will help us easily code the Hangman problem. So this problem specifically is going to focus on implementing the function isWordGuessed. This will take in 2 parameters, a string called secret word and a list of letters called lettersGuessed, and it will return a Boolean, which will be true if the secret word has been guessed, as in if all the letters of secret words are in lettersGuessed, and false otherwise. So to do this, we will head over to our code. But right before we get into that, there is a couple files that were super important to make sure we have, which is going to be this words.txt in the Hangman Python source code. So we needed to make sure these are located in the same directory so that they can be accessed together. Fortunately, we were able to do that. So if we jump into this, this is a ton of the helper code. This will help us just run our problem. So the code for this first problem is pretty simple. We start off with a for loop to iterate through all of the letters in the secret word. But basically what this entire block is doing is checking whether all of the letters of the secret word have been guessed. And it does this by looping through the secret word and comparing each letter to the list of guessed letters as we have up here. So if any letter had not been guessed yet, then that's going to activate this statement here, hence the if letter not in lettersGuessed. It will return false, but if all the letters have been guessed, then it's going to return true. For problem number 2, we are going to be printing out the user's guess. So we're going to implement the function getGuessedWord. This will take in 2 parameters, a string of secret word and a list of letters called lettersGuessed. This function will return a string that is comprised of letters and underscores based on the letters that the user has guessed. So similar enough to the first one, this is kind of going over usability, how it should look. And finally, what we need to know is for this function, you may assume that all letters in secret word and lettersGuessed are lowercase. Head over to our code here. Here we are. So we see that the function of getGuessedWord is defined here, passing in the secret word and lettersGuessed parameters. The code is fairly simple. We have a guessed word variable that is currently an empty string. We are going to use a for loop to iterate through the letters in secret word. Every time that a letter is guessed, it is going to be added to this string here. But this string is also going to contain these underscores to the locations in which letters have not been guessed yet. And then finally, it's going to return that string. So for an example, say the word is apple. If we guess an A, the first letter is going to be A, but then after that we will have 4 underscores for the remaining letters. Problem 3 is going to focus on implementing the third function, which is going to be called getAvailableLetters. This is going to take in 1 parameter, which is going to be a list of letters called lettersGuessed. The function will return a string that is comprised of lowercase English letters. It'll be all the letters that have not been guessed yet, and I'll explain that a little more in just a moment. So if we head over to our code here, we're going to see that first we declare an empty string called the available letters. And so this for loop is going to iterate through A through Z, so through all the letters. And basically what this whole block is doing is after each turn that a user takes, this is going to then print out via this return available letter statement the remaining letters that the user has. So as it states in this if letter is not in the lettersGuessed, then it's going to add it, available letters, it'll add it to this empty string. So after each turn that the user has, it will show them what remaining letters they have to guess. Finally, that brings us to problem number 4, which is going to be implementing the function Hangman. This will take in one parameter, the secret word, which the user is trying to guess. This will start up an interactive game of Hangman between the user and the computer, and we will make sure to take advantage of the 3 helper functions, the isWordGuessed, getGuessedWord, and getAvailableLetters that we defined in the previous 3 problems. So this is just kind of going over a few different hints, using the lower method to convert all user inputs to lowercase, since we are measuring in that specifically. And here is 4 important pieces of information that we need to store that we already went over in the rest of them. And then we need to include calls to input in order to get the user's guess. So if we head over here we see that the Hangman function is defined here. So our 4th and final function, which takes in the parameter of secret word, which is the word that the user is trying to guess. So first we have a couple messages. So initially we are just welcoming the user to the game. And this print statement is letting the user know that the secret word is length X. So this will print out, I'm thinking of a word that is, for example, 7 letters long, just dependent on what the secret word ends up being. So a couple of variables we have here. So we have this guesses left variable, which establishes how many guesses the user gets before the game is over. And then this is an empty string that's going to hold the letters that get guessed as the game progresses. So we have a few different blocks here. This first block is a while loop. So while guesses left is greater than 0, it is going to print a few different messages. It'll show the user how many guesses they have left, and then it will then print on the next line how many available letters they have based on what letters they have and have not guessed yet. So here we use the input function and we tie it to this variable named guess. This is just going to print the message to the screen for the user to input whatever letter they want to guess. And then this .lower function will make sure that it is read in lowercase, just to avoid any and all issues. So this block right here is going to check for duplicate inputs. So if a user happens to enter the same letter in twice at different points, it'll print this message saying, oops, you've already guessed that letter. It won't affect the number of guesses. It'll just go back to the input screen. This block right here is just adding the correct letter to the letters guessed list, and then it's updating the partially guessed word. So like we were saying earlier with the underscores and the letters, this is basically just going to put the correctly guessed letter in the correct spot to help guide the user along to eventually get the final word, or maybe not. And it'll print this good guess message along with that information. Next block here deals with the user guessing all of the correct letters. So if all the letters are guessed, it's going to print this message of congratulations, you won, and then it will break and the program will be over. This next block is going to run when the letter guessed is not in the word. So if you guess a letter that is not in the word, say the word is apple and you guess a Z, it's going to print, oops, that letter is not in my word, and then it will take one guess away from the guesses left. So after each letter you get wrong, you're losing a guess. Final statement down here runs if all the guesses are used and the word has not been guessed yet. So if this number gets down to 0, it'll print this message saying, sorry, you ran out of guesses. The word was, and then it will reveal the secret word after the game is over. And then down here, we just uncommented these 2 lines to complete the Hangman function and to run the file. And if we come down here, we can see a previous game that I played just to show that it's working properly. So we loaded all the words from the word list. So this statement right here lets us know that the words.txt was implemented correctly and that the Python source file was in the same directory. So this random game of Hangman happened to be 4 letters long, and as we can see here, we have 8 guesses left. And my first guess was in A, which was not in the letter, so it printed this message, and then in -1, so we went down to 7, 6, 5, 4, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up getting this, ended up being whole, and as you can see, it's showing us our available letters each and every time, and then the updated word filled in with underscores and letters. Thank you.